Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project. This month we're talking about radon. We've got Kelly and Carolee here from the Idaho State Health Department. We'll let them introduce themselves and then we'll get started on some questions.
Fabulous. I'm Carolee Cooper. I'm with Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. I am a program specialist in the Environmental Health Office, and radon is one of my specialties.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Cooper with Idaho Department of Health and Welfare in the Environmental Health Program. Working alongside Carolee.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
And wanted to add, so we have, I don't know if anyone can see the decorations probably in our cameras, but it is very Christmassy. We know this is an episode for January, but we're recording it in our Classy 97 podcast, and right now it's very Christmas focused. So that's why the decorations enjoy the extra festive cheer. But yeah, so we'll jump in because when Jeff and I picked this topic, we were like, well, Jeff might know more about it than I do. But,
I really don't.
We were both like, we don't really know anything about this. So we did a little bit of research, but let's just start off with what it is and where it comes from.
Fabulous. So radon is a naturally occurring gas that we have all around us. It is a radioactive gas that we cannot see, smell, or taste at all. So a lot of people don't think that it exists because of that, unfortunately. So what it is we have a lot of granite in Idaho and across the United States. And as that granite breaks down, it has a lot of uranium in it. And as uranium breaks down, it breaks down into radium and then into radon gas. That gas continues to degrade into some progenies, as we call them. And those are what's the most dangerous. They are in the air, we inhale them, they attach to our lung tissue and release a radioactive burst, and that can damage our tissue in our lungs and cause lung cancer. So it is the number one cause of lung cancer in non-smokers and second leading cause in smokers.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is a definite issue that we're trying to bring light to, so everybody has a little bit of knowledge about it, and people need to have a little bit of concern. So, if, we have people that live in homes for 30 years and might not ever know that their home has radon. So what makes this an issue is that we are building our homes more energy efficient, tighter construction, and our homes work like a suction cup on the ground. And so we build a house or a building, we stick it on a piece of ground. There's no way to know what the radon levels are going to be until after construction. So the house gets finished and we can test at that point to see what radon levels are. Our house causes a negative pressure when built, and things that can make that pressure increase are our fans in our bathrooms, in our kitchen, opening an upstairs window, things like that cause that different pressure. Change in weather, the wind blows, a storm comes in, we have high and low pressures, things like that. That all affects the potential radon levels that we're exposed to. So having an idea of what you have going on in your home is really important, and the only way to know is to test.
Sorry, can I jump in really
please
fast,
do.
Jeff? The pressure, is that what kind of brings, because you talked about the suction and then the additional pressure with weather changes and fans and like kind of the environment of your home. Is that what brings the radon in?
So radon gas follows a path of least resistance, just like any other gas. we encourage people to test in the wintertime because our outside ground freezes, but it takes a lot longer for the ground underneath our homes and buildings to freeze. So it's kind of like a funneling effect, and that gas is just going through the path of least resistance. It comes in through cracks in the foundation. It doesn't matter how old your home is. It doesn't matter what type of structure it is. It all depends on really what you have construction-wise and what is under your home.
Like
you don't know unless you test. So
like the rock underneath.
And it can vary from home to home. You can have one neighbor that tests and they have a very low radon level versus the neighbor or a few houses down can have a very high radon level. It just really depends on the construction and what rocks are degrading underneath. So in Idaho, we have high levels of radon throughout Idaho. I would say medium to high levels. We have a radon map that people can go to look at their area based on zip code. And I just did a bunch of research based on county, and we should have that information up soon. But if you look at our map, it's quite shaded. We used purple for the color of our map, and it is quite extensive on high levels throughout Idaho. But like I said, you don't know unless you test. So I tested my home, and it was pretty low. The background radon levels on average throughout the United States is anywhere from a 0.4 to 1.3 picocuries per liter. A picocurie is a measurement of radioactive particles in a certain amount of air, so a liter of air, and that can be measured through testing.
Oh, you hit like a lot of the questions
I
already,
know,
so it's
I know.
awesome.
I'm all over the place.
No, that wasn't all over the place. It was like boom, 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 all like in a row. So you're good. We were just like,
Yeah, that's great for us.
yeah, that's awesome. We'd rather you talk and share your knowledge.
Okay,
that's awesome.
I'll talk off the hip. So a lot of people think because they don't have a basement that radon is not an issue, or that they have a basement and it is an issue. And like I said before, it really doesn't matter. You can have a flat slab, you can have a crawl space, you can have a basement and have no radon, or high, medium to high levels of radon. So don't get lulled into a sense of security thinking, oh, well, I don't have that basement. I'm just a flat slab. That radon doesn't care. And it doesn't care if it's a brand new home or an old home. My home was built in 1912 and had very low levels. A few houses down, much newer home, and much higher levels. So there's a lot of factors that go into what you potentially are exposed to, and testing is the biggest way to know. Very cool.
Do we have any like geographic hotspots of radon in this area?
We do. And like I said, you can see that on our map if you go to radonidaho.org to see, and I'll mention it a few times.
Okay.
I overshare. Radon's not regulated in the state of Idaho currently. There are a lot of states that do regulate. But in the state of Idaho, we do have some hotspots that local ordinances have been passed to require new construction mitigation. And I can go into that a little bit here in a minute. But Blaine County has high levels of radon, and they have implemented any new construction have a mitigation system installed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and also Teton County, which isn't too far from here, they have extremely high levels as well. And I'm not to say that those are the only places. We have several areas, but those are the only two rough general areas that have some kind of regulation. So we also would like to get the word out more to builders to maybe take some action in putting in a passive system when they're building. It's much cheaper to put in a passive system in the beginning of construction, And if the home does end up having high radon, all they have to do is slap a fan on the system and it takes care of it.
Okay. So is it kind of just, what is the passive system versus an active system?
So if you have high radon, we encourage you to, one, you would know that because you tested. Two, it depends on what time of year. Like I had mentioned, winter probably are going to be a little bit higher. We encourage a retest just to verify that this is an issue, maybe even a long-term test. So a short-term test you can get free from us off of our website this month, January. And just go to our radonidaho.org. And as long as we have them in stock, they're free. If you can't get one for free, if we've run out, and it all depends on funding, then we have a link to a lab air check that we can get them at a discounted rate to everybody. And you can also pick them up at Home Depot, Lowe's, any kind of business like that will have a short-term radon test kit. They also have long-term kits. Let me backtrack a little bit. The short-term is about a week of testing. You just have this little charcoal card that you hang up, super easy, at the lowest living level of the home. So if you have a crawl space, we don't want you to test your crawl space. You're not living in your crawl space. But if you have a basement and you have bedrooms down there, playrooms, family rooms, things like that, then that's where we would want you to test. And you just hang up this little card. Don't have to mess with it. And then you send it in and you get a test result back from the lab a few days later. And that, like I said, takes about a week. A long-term test is about 90 days. And that really is great because it kind of gives a great idea of what's going on in the home. So, if there was storms, depending on what brand you get, sometimes you can see the fluctuations day to day, things like that. So, but it gives you a nice average of what your exposure is. So, and I apologize, I kind of lost my train.
No, you're good.
What was your original? I hope I was answering the question properly.
No, that was great. I don't even remember who asked it. You asked, and now it's my turn. Yep.
No, you're fine.
What was I thinking? There was a thought that came into my head. First of all, that was cool because you shared the kind of that misconception of it's not just people with basements. Because in this, the whole time I was thinking, oh, it's your basement, but I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
It's your whole house being affected.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like the higher levels? Would they be in the lowest level of your house?
So what happens?
And like, do they affect the higher levels of your home? Okay.
It does. So it might not be as a high a concentration at the higher levels, but the taller the building, the more of that negative pressure, that suction is done on the property, or that whatever's touching the ground. So whether that's the slab or ultimately, we use cement for all of our structures. But it's not just homes. You can have a mobile home that they do the wrap around, and that is kind of encasing those potential gases. And if it's not vented properly, it can radiate up into the home.
So it's not even, you don't have to have a foundation dug necessarily. It's just.
Not necessarily.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So everybody should test.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And if you live in an apartment,
That's me.
Yeah.
I do.
I do too.
Yeah, right. So, I would suggest testing or talk to your landlord about, what that would mean if you did get a result that was high, and what next steps. Unfortunately, like I said, in Idaho, it's not regulated. We can't force them to mitigate, but at least you have an idea of what's going on. And if that means that you're uncomfortable with those levels, you can
Find a new apartment.
Find someplace else, yeah.
And what is an unacceptable level?
So, again, radon is measured in picocuries, so I'll refer to that mostly. So, EPA has some guidelines that Idaho follows. They say that at 2.7 picocuries and higher, I should say between 2.7 and 4, you should really think about monitoring a little bit longer, seeing what's going on, and possibly think about mitigation. anything above a 4 picocurie, we highly suggest that you reach out to a radon professional. You can also do it yourself if you're inclined. We have that information on our website. Again, radonidaho.org. And so there's a link on our website for the mitigator link that any certified professional is going to be on that list, so you can reach out to them. But anything above that 4 is definitely a concern. Radon's issue is it's a long-term exposure issue. And so if you're exposed, say here in this room right now, and we don't know what the radon levels, and say it's a super high level. Me being exposed short term isn't necessarily the issue. But if you're in here 8-10 hours a day, your exposure is going to be more, obviously. And so it's that long-term exposure that causes that continuous damage to your lungs, and that's what eventually can cause lung cancer. And they're also finding, and don't necessarily quote me on this, but they are starting to find some other relative health issues that are being studied right now that radon seems to be affecting, but
it's still in the study process.
It's still in the study process, but so in Idaho, I was just looking, we have 35 years worth of data. I want to say only 6% of Idaho, though, has tested their property, which isn't very much. But when I was compiling the data for counties, I was also looking at the highest levels of each county that I had a test result for. And we have everything from 0, or it'll never be 0. We have that background. But a very low level to in the thousands. So, and if you think about that, we're super concerned at 4. If you're, in the 20s, 30s, 50s, hundreds, thousands, that exposure is crazy, and that risk is definitely elevated for those people, especially if they smoke.
That's crazy.
So do things like having a lot of bedrock under where you live contribute to it?
It's hard to say. So I live right up against a mountain, and I have low levels. But like I said, a couple of houses down, it's high. So it just really, truly, you don't know what you have under there. I can't say that, you have slag, that's going to be an issue, or something like that. So honestly, we try not to say anything specific, only to test, so that you have an idea of what your specific issue is at your particular property.
And then, so you talked about these are the levels that you probably want to then start doing some mitigation. If it's lower, you still have levels, right?
Right.
Do you maybe test in a couple of years? Can things change? What's this?
It can.
Yeah.
And so we suggest every 2 to 5 years, preferably 2, but 2 to 5. Even if you have a radon mitigation system, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but even if you have a system, you should be testing every 2 years, because your fan might go out or something cracked, or you just want to be safe. You don't want to have that false sense of security. So testing often is key. So how a mitigation system works, now I realize where I lost track. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So a passive system is just basically either they can dig a hole in your foundation, and this is after construction. They can dig some holes and stick a pipe down there, seal it up, and run it to above the roof line. That's a passive system. Or they can put perforated pipe under the foundation as they're building it and run the pipe up above the roof line. That's passive. So the only difference between a passive and an active system is the incorporation of a fan. And I've been in some trainings, and sometimes they need a strong fan, but more often than not, it is just the ever so slight airflow to change that pressure and to have it follow the pipe up and out. So that would be the difference between the active and passive system that I failed to mention
Oh,
earlier.
you're good. I was thinking about that. It sounds pretty simple. Like it's just moving the air different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not making the house the main conduit of the air.
Right.
It's giving it
Right.
another,
Giving
like an
it-
off-gassing kind
Yeah.
of. I don't know if that's
Well,
what it is, but
It's
like,
the path of least resistance.
Mhm,
You're
yeah.
changing the air pressure. So it definitely wants to follow that pipe up and out versus trying to fight concrete and things like that. So,
that's really cool how
Yeah.
that works.
yep. And there's a lot of businesses out there that will do the work, but we highly recommend using a certified professional. To be certified, they have to go through a lot of training to know about air pressures and piping and things like that. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of people in Idaho that are certified. But if you're looking for somebody in your area, go to our website, radonidaho.org. And like I said, I have a link on there that will bring up certified professionals. And there's two kinds. There's measurement and mitigation. Some people have both. Some only have one. But that's very clear on the link.
We'll make sure to include. I'll make sure we get it written down properly, and then we'll put it in the notes, the episode note too, so that people can
Beautiful.
click on that link pretty easily.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're in January. So January is Radon Action Month. And this is when I love that we're doing this because this is when we want to get the message out the most. And because it's wintertime, we want people to have access to those free kits and test their homes during this time of year. Not to say that testing other times of year can't give you some great education, but if you have high radon in the summertime, you're definitely going to have it in the wintertime. But maybe not necessarily vice versa. So winter is a little bit better.
What was something? Oh, that we did that one.
I know. You're covering so many questions
All the
before we have to ask
It's
them.
awesome. No,
It's great.
That's awesome.
Well,
You read our minds.
I had our questions printed out, or not printed out, but I had them when I was reviewing. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to stay on task.
No. Well,
all
and
over the
honestly, you've just been like going through them in order, realistically, pretty
Oh, well,
much.
good.
Yeah, no.
You're doing great. It's wonderful.
It's awesome.
Something else I wanted to mention about radon and lung cancer. A lot of people are concerned. They're like, I get calls all the time on our hotline, and people are like, I have a cough. I'm running a fever. I know I have to have radon. Actually, radon does not have any symptoms. You're not going to have a fever. You're not going to have a cough. You're not going to have irritation. It's that long-term exposure of cell damage. It's very slow. So if you're having respiratory issues, I would look into maybe some other causes. Not to say that radon isn't an issue, and you should definitely test to make sure. But that would not be my first thought if somebody was sick.
Yeah. Like, still get medical professional
Right.
help, but
Right.
that isn't.
But probably start looking into some other air quality issues in your home
Right.
first,
Right.
like mold or carbon dioxide or something like that.
Exactly.
What are some common mistakes that people might make if they do their own testing?
The biggest issue I see is people on the card, you write your information for these short-term tests, and people don't write legibly. And they are going to receive an email with their test results from the lab. And if they can't read that or they forget to put that on there, they are not going to get their test results. A lot of times people will call me asking if I have those test results. I get all the test results, but I only get the result and a zip code. I don't get their name, their address. There's no way for me to make that connection. So writing legibly, and there is a code on the test kit. I highly suggest that people write that down so that they can go online if they don't get their test, and they can type in this code and find their test results. So that would be the biggest thing. Also, people throwing up the test and kind of forgetting about it and sending it in too late. So there is a time frame that the lab has to follow, and if it's past that time frame, once the test has started, and you're writing this information down on the card, if they wait too long, then it's not valid and won't get a good result. So, but I get a lot of calls of people saying they never got their test result. So check your spam, make sure you're writing your email legibly, that kind of thing.
Get that code down.
Yeah. Also, when they're doing their test, and I had mentioned putting it in the lowest living area, make sure you don't put it in the bathroom or in the kitchen, because the moisture from those rooms can affect, because it's just a charcoal piece of cardboard. So in a dry area, not near windows or doors. So somewhere in the middle of the wall. I tell people a bedroom is a great spot. You spend more of your time in a bedroom than probably anywhere else in your house. So,
Somewhere in the home that you're spending a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the lowest level within that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking maybe set yourself a reminder on your phone. Like if it's a 3-month one, put a reminder on you, because you can do that and you can calendar things. Or if it's a
7 days.
7 day, sorry.
Oh, 90 days.
90 days,
Mm-hmm.
30 days, right?
So the long-term ones are going to give you a digital readout of what that number is, and it can go longer. So, if you kind of forget it, it's not the end of the world. It's those small short-term tests that people tend to kind of mess up a little bit because they have to send it into the lab and get a result. The long-term ones usually are electronic, and they can read what their results are. And we also, we have them available, the short-term ones, on our website. You can get them at a hardware store. We have started a library program. We have several libraries that are participating with us, and we have electronic devices that people can check out. Now, unfortunately, on this side of the state, we haven't quite got there. We're working on it. But northern Idaho and Boise area, there's a few libraries that are participating. I believe that if you went to a local library here and wanted a radon test kit, if they participate in the library program, if that particular library participates in the, I'm not sure what it's called, but they will mail it or ship it to the library, and then you can check it out. So something we're really excited about.
That is really cool. And they check, it's an electronic device, so you check it out and then it gives you your reading, and then you bring it back and then somebody else can use it?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and a part of that, there's all kinds of directions. We also have a short-term kit as a part of that, so you can hang that up and do the electronic at the same time to confirm your results.